So before we get into the video, I just want to say thank you to everybody for helping me get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Obviously, this was one of my goals when starting the channel. I just never anticipated 1,000 people wanting to watch little old me. I'm not John Brezink, Devin Laird, or Michael Todd. However, when I started the channel, I was starting to make a little bit of a name for myself, especially in the 154-pound class. And that was another goal that I had, was I wanted to spotlight the lightweights a little bit more. So once again, I appreciate it, guys. This opens up many more opportunities for me to do live streams. I can now stream practices, tournaments, super matches. So just stay tuned, many more videos to come. And with that being said, we'll get on to the review of Michigan State. I won't bore you guys with a long, drawn-out review. This will be a brief review of Michigan State, which is one of the biggest arm wrestling tournaments in the country. And if I'm not mistaken, there were 519 competitors this year, which in fact would make that one of the biggest events. But not only is it the biggest event, it's also one of my favorite events to come to every year. I've been attending Michigan State for 5 years now, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year. So my first year, I did the amateur division. My second year, I ended up going 0-4 in the pro division, and I remember pulling Dan Blanchard for the first time. And I never thought I was going to get a gorilla after that. I thought these guys were so far ahead of me. However, my third year I show up, I end up getting a bronze gorilla left-handed. My fourth year, I end up getting 2 silver gorillas. And finally, this year, I walked away with 2 golden gorillas. First place left-handed, first place right-handed. And as you guys can see, these are some of the coolest trophies in all of arm wrestling. Hence why so many competitors travel all across the United States to come here. I was super happy with this accomplishment, and I couldn't have asked for much more. However, when we first showed up to the event, Team Ohio realized that we had enough competitors to join the team division. And by the end of the tournament, Team Ohio walked away with the Michigan Arms Team Championship belt. So I couldn't have done it without all the people from Team Ohio. They stepped up, they did well, and this will probably be displayed at the Cleveland Arm Wrestling practices. And we'll be happy to bring it back next year and attempt to defend our title. So with that being said, I want to get into my matches. As usual, there are competitors here that I was aware of and concerned about, and I'll briefly walk you through some of those matches and what my thoughts were. So after a long day of waiting around, the 154s finally got called, and my first match was against Anthony Gravedigger Swanson. I didn't know much about him, however I have seen him at a few local events. And he wasn't necessarily somebody I was concerned about coming into the event. However, I don't take anybody lightly, and I take everybody as if they're better than I am. So the match starts, and I end up flashing Anthony. It was a good match for me to get the jitters out of the way, to get the nerves out of the way, and to prepare for the harder competition. So my second match was against Cole Casper. And if you guys know anything about us, we're getting into a war every single time. And at Michigan State, you don't really want to get into a war because you never know who your next match is going to be. So even if you win, your arm could be so blown up that a lesser opponent could end up beating you. And I knew Cole wanted to go into a hook. I most likely want to go into a hook. So I ended up loading with a little bit more side pressure than usual. That way his hit wouldn't take me off center. It was good strategy on my end. I ended up getting my hook. I dragged him back. However, his side pressure is so strong that I pretty much had to hold him on my bicep. Luckily, my pronation and hand is just a little bit stronger than his was, and that was the deciding factor for me getting the victory. My third opponent was Matt Borden, and he was somebody I was concerned about coming into this event. I know Matt's explosive, he has a good hook, and he's also an IFA Masters World Champion, so definitely not somebody to take lightly. However, once we gripped up, I felt very comfortable in the setup. My finger pressure felt very strong, as well as my side pressure. And when the referee said go, we both went into a hook. However, I felt that he wasn't able to move me off center. As soon as I felt that, I went sideways with pronation, basically a hooking top roll. And fortunately, I was stronger on this day. Matt's always a great opponent and a threat to anybody in the competition. So going into the semifinals, my first match was against Joel Cagle. And some of you might have seen the little call out video where he called me out. And there was no disrespect intended in that. And I knew that. And I had no animosity towards Joel whatsoever. However, I wasn't going to let him win that match. So when we first gripped up, the first thing I noticed is his hand wasn't nearly as strong as I thought it was going to be. This is the first time we've ever gripped up. And as soon as I felt that weakness in his hand, I already had a game plan in mind. So he hit into me with a hook, and I just rolled back with a top roll. And I believe he was truly caught off guard with that, and it put him out of position almost right away. Once he was out of position, all I had to do was go sideways for the pin. And I ended up getting the win. Joel's definitely on the right path. He'll be an opponent for me in the near future. I definitely understand that. And I'll be looking forward to many more matches with him in the future. So going into the finals, it comes down to me and Cole Casper. Once again, we get into a hook war. His side pressure is extremely strong. I'm able to hold him off just long enough that my pronation and finishing side pressure was able to pin him. I end up getting the first place victory. However, much respect to Cole. He's the reason why I can't let up in my training whatsoever. Because if I do, he's probably going to end up surpassing me at some point. And it's guys like him that keep me on my toes and keep me training hard every single day. So moving on to left arm, I felt a little bit more confident with my left. I don't know if it was because I'd already gotten the first place right-handed, so it basically took all the stress off my shoulders. But my first match again was against Matt Borden, and during the setup I felt really good. My finger containment, my side pressure, and when the referee said go, we get into a short hook, and my side pressure was just a little bit too much, and I took Matt over for the pin. So I didn't get an easy draw whatsoever. Right after Matt, I had Cole Casper, and we were fighting for the setup. Didn't really feel like either one of us could get what we wanted. However, the referee ends up starting us, and Cole slips out from underneath. And let me tell you, Cole feels 10 times stronger when he's in the straps. So we end up going into the straps. Referee starts us. Cole gets nice side pressure. He basically has me opened up on my bicep. However, my cup is strong enough and my lat drag strong enough that I was able to contain Cole's side pressure. So I finally weathered a little bit of his side pressure storm, and I was able to pull him back, use a little bit of pronation, and my finishing power was just a little bit too much for him once again. So going into the semifinals, my match was against Caleb Rout Sr., and he was another person that I was concerned about coming into this event. I'd never pulled him before, and the word was he had a pretty strong left hand. So with that being said, during the setup, he was very square, and he wasn't giving me much pressure sideways or backwards. So I definitely felt like I was controlling the setup, and when the match started, I forced a hook. I felt him try to give me some side pressure. As soon as he led up, I hit the other direction, and I was able to pin him with a hook. I later learned that he may have had a slight injury to his elbow, and we both agreed that we should pull at a later time when we're both 100%. So I'll definitely be looking forward to that match in the future. Once again, the finals came down to myself and Cole Casper, And just based off our previous match, when Cole slipped out and got the straps, I knew how much stronger he felt in the straps. So in the setup, I was trying to stay a little bit more flat-wristed. And when he went to slip out, I wanted to press down. Unfortunately, he gave me a little bit more back pressure than I anticipated, and he ended up pinning me. Luckily, I was on the A side, which means Cole would have needed to beat me 2 times. So the match restarts. I tried controlling his hand a little bit more, and I went into a hook, had a little bit better positioning. After a small hook war, I ended up pinning Cole and taking first place left-handed as well. So before I finish up the video, I just want to give a shout out to my teammate Rich Calero. Nobody knows how hard this guy trains more than I do. And nobody knows how much he wanted one of these more than I do. So I start watching Rich's right hand matches. He's blowing through people left and right until he comes up to Dan Vertelka and Bill Ballinger. 2 great opponents that he ended up losing to. Rich ended up taking 4th place and no gorilla. So I knew Rich was bummed. I talked with him a little bit. He knew he still had left hand coming up. And I start watching his left hand matches. And once again, he's blowing through people left and right. He's looking good. He ends up beating Dan. He ends up beating Bill. And he ends up getting his golden gorilla. So, Rich, I just wanted to say congratulations, and we'll see you next time you come to practice. This finishes up my review for Michigan State. Great venue, great referees, great promoter, and most importantly, great competition. I'm happy with how I performed. I'm happy about how everyone from Ohio performed, and I'll continue training and get stronger for every single upcoming tournament. Thanks for watching, guys.